He was reincarnated in another world with a tireless body and a stolen tool. And we're here for the recap of the Sekai no Miranouka season. So sit back, grab some popcorn, and hit the like button. Without further ado, let's get to the video. The man who lived a life of suffering on Earth due to a mistake by God is given the chance to reincarnate. And on top of that, a divine tool to help him achieve his dream of becoming a farmer. As a bonus, God gives him a body free of disease and that would never tire. When he wakes up in the new world, he is surprised to be able to move, since he couldn't live in his previous world. He also discovers the tool that God gave him and its incredible use. While looking for a place to hide from possible monsters and establish a base, he finds a giant tree and decides to make it his new home. He soon goes in search of water and food and discovers that he doesn't get tired by digging with his tool, so he takes advantage and digs several tunnels until he finds water. He also decides to clear the surrounding area, since he will soon use it to make a field. But when he uses his tool to cut down a tree, he ends up splitting it like butter with great ease and just one blow. He processes the wood, but while he does this, he is so focused that he doesn't see nightfall, so he makes a hole in the big tree and decides to spend the night there. The next day, while cleaning the tree, Hirako has his first encounter with a living being in this world. A bizarre-looking rabbit comes towards him to attack him, but ends up becoming his lunch. After building a bathroom for his basic needs, he starts to plow the land around it to plant. He does this already thinking about the vegetables he wants to grow there, but forgets that he doesn't have any seeds with him. After waking up the next day, he notices that his field has sprouted the vegetables he wanted to plant, and realizes that the power of his divine tool made it possible. He builds a fence to protect his plantation and continues killing rabbits as the days go by. One fine day, he finds 2 dogs at his door, and after deciding to feed them, he notices that the female is pregnant. She goes into labor, and he takes her to the cabin and decides to let nature take its course. He falls asleep and, the next day, discovers that 4 healthy wolf cubs have been born. He names the wolves, who end up living with him, calling them Kuro and Yuki. In heaven, God remembers Hirako and realizes that he made another mistake. He was sent to the Forest of Death, one of the places with the most ferocious monsters in this world. On Earth, Hirako is confirming the power of his tool, using it to plant every type of vegetable he can imagine. As a way of thanking the god who granted him this peaceful life, he creates statues, 2 for God and 1 for the supposed god of agriculture, who gave him the tool. A while later, Hirako decides to plant fruit trees to improve his diet of tasteless meat and also ventures into the forest, since the dogs can now go with him and ensure that he does not get lost on the way back. With the arrival of winter, Hirako finds himself with no options to escape the cold, since the skin of the animals he hunted was fetid and could rot. To save him from this situation, Kuro brings a huge, black spider, which shows that it has the ability to weave clothes. It helps Hirako make coats and clothes for the house. Hirako adopts the spider and names it Zabuton. After a lonely winter, Kuro's cubs begin to leave the village to find companions and then return together after many clashes. Zabuton also appears with several cubs. One day, Zabuton's alarm goes off. When Hirako goes to see what it is, he discovers that the wolves have captured a girl wrapped in threads and naked. He doesn't understand anything, but when he goes to hold out his shirt for her to cover herself, she jumps on his neck and sucks his blood, returning to her original form. Kuro sees the scene and beats her up, making her return to her lowly form. Hirako, after talking to her, thinks she is harmless and lets her suck his blood to regain strength. He takes her to the village and she is impressed by the harvest and the lifestyle that Hirako led. At the end of the day, she writes everything down in her magical diary and reveals her name, Lilus. As the conversation develops, Hirako realizes that she will eventually leave. Afraid of being alone again, he invites her to live there with him, without realizing that he was basically proposing marriage. After feeling embarrassed by the situation, he asks again and, in the end, Lilus agrees to live with him. The next day, as she greets him, he notices her lowly stature again, and she says that it is for her safety, since he would not think of attacking her while she is in that form. The next day, Hirako is commenting on how useful and educational having Lulu with him is. She introduced him to magic and taught him about the salt he was looking for. A while later, Zabuton's alarm goes off again, and another girl is taken by the wolves, this time, an angel who apparently knew Lulu. They take her home, and Lulu reveals her involvement with Hirako, introducing him as her husband. The angel introduces herself as Tia and reveals that she was in charge of capturing Lulu, who had caused a commotion among the nobles of her kingdom. Lulu has the idea of proposing that Tia live with them, and after making Tia spend a day in the countryside with them, she proposes again that she stay, insisting once more. But her true intentions are revealed. She tells Tia that her body would not be able to handle the night's activities if she were alone. Tia decides to stay with them, but one day she asks to leave for a while, and after a while she returns with with several elves who were living in the forest after losing their home. Under the pretext of repopulating their race and having a good place to live, they ask the protagonist for shelter. They begin preparations to build new houses and shelter all these people. The elves were very talented and helped build their own houses, which, by the way, were much better than the protagonist's house. They also proved to be proficient in blacksmithing, quickly building a furnace to begin working. After a while, one of the elves decided to make bread using natural yeast. While Harako was enjoying them, he asked Lulu about the owners of the land where they lived, and she replied that the Demon King owned the land. Harako feared retaliation, but Lulu said that since no one helped create his village, everything there belonged to him alone. In the following days, Harako decided to create a reservoir and a canal for the village. As a result, many fish ended up in his hands, and he decided to eat them. Everyone there was surprised at first, but when they saw him enjoying the fish, they ended up eating it too. He also ended up creating a rice field for his Japanese meals and built a thresher for the rice polishing process. After cooking and transforming the rice into onigiri, everyone ends up loving Prota's recipe, but he himself ends up unable to eat them. After a day of working in the rice field, he realizes that he is the only one who cannot use magic to clean himself. So, Harako decides to create a hot bath with the help of the elves. With the problem of bath residue and sewage, Tia has the idea of bringing slimes to the village, which would help deal with the dirt. After the bath is ready, Harako tries to explain how to use it, but they force him to show them in practice. After seeing him enjoying the water, they take off their clothes and get in with him. He ends up getting tense and wants to leave, but Lulu and Tia tell him that he can stay there, and it would even be better if everyone bathed together. Yes, for those who are wondering, there was Snoo Snoo. During the construction of the house, everyone's opinion was taken into account to create the then-named best house in the village. Looking inside, it is a completely luxurious and very spacious house, with many rooms and dedicated areas, a basement to store food and supplies. When he opens a door that they had not mentioned, he discovers a private room, which will certainly be used for worship, peacefully and orderly. Everyone is happy with the new house. Prota feels proud of the evolution of the village with the new residents. After some changes, he decides to make 2 more statues, this time for his dogs, and places them in front of the entrance to the village. A while later, winter is coming, and realizing that they have spent most of their days indoors, he tries to finish the preparations as soon as possible. After that, he delivers supplies so that Zabuton can feed herself during her hibernation, and she, in turn, gives the protagonist new blankets. Lulu and Tia continue smoking the meat to store for the cold. The dogs need to eat, since they will not be able to hunt so easily. The protagonist creates a snow warehouse, which will store preserved food and keep it dry. Our Prota sees Lulu using magic and decides to try it too. Maybe it will work. Even though he knows it won't work, he is curious about the fact that he can't use magic, while everyone else there can. He decides to ask Lulu about it, and she replies that even the most basic magic requires training to be effective. Harako praises Lulu and Tia when he sees Tia using advanced magic to create several golems. He admires Tia's skill and Lulu feels jealous. Harako then feels down for not being able to use magic and belittles himself. Lulu comforts him by saying how amazing he is for having survived so long in that forest. Winter finally arrives and the snow piles up. Stuck at home, Harako introduces games to everyone. They play mahjong, chess, and reverse. Lulu finds it easy at first, but then gets excited when she better understands the purpose of the games. She calls Tia to a duel. Lulu loses badly and tries to cheat by throwing pieces at the target, but Tia insists on finishing the game properly. Even after losing, Lulu continues to throw tantrums. Meanwhile, Kuro and the elves play against each other. Kane stands out by winning matches. Lulu then challenges Kuro, but Harako senses that it will be a disaster. Kuro beats Lulu. Then the protagonist plays against an elf and Kuro. He thinks who will win but is humiliatingly defeated by Kuro. To vary the games, the protagonist creates a mini bowling alley. He throws, almost making a strike. The pins are decorated as villains to make it easier to explain the objective to Lulu. Lu gets a strike on his first throw. The snow begins to melt, and one morning the invasion alarm rings. They look up at the sky and see a dragon. Auntie identifies it as a wyvern. The group gets scared and prepares for the worst. The wyvern throws a fireball. Auntie screams and Lulu raises a barrier. The barrier holds the main attack, but smaller fireballs spread throughout the village. The elves run to put out the fire. The protagonist thinks about running away but sees that it is impossible. His magic tool changes shape, becoming a spear. He throws it at the wyvern. The wyvern tries to counterattack but fails. The spear pierces one of the wyvern's wings and returns to Harako's hand like Thor's Mjolnir. He attacks again and the wyvern falls in the forest. After putting out the fire, desires, they go to the forest. They find the wyvern unconscious and surrounded by wolves. Harako questions if the wyvern was being controlled, but Tia says no. It was just the monster's instinct. Soon after, Harako asks if they can eat the wyvern's meat. They explain that the meat is extremely rare and highly valued. The protagonist then prepares several delicious dishes with the meat. Tia and Lulu discuss Harako's spear attack and conclude that it would be impossible to stop it. The force was absurd to the point of breaking 3 barriers in a row. They mentally thank Kuro and Zabuton for having been stopped earlier. In a distant castle, 3 figures are terrified upon learning of the wyvern's defeat. In another castle, a dragon and its butler talk about the attack. The butler states that if the dragon took the blow head-on, it would be completely pierced. The dragon then decides not to act against the village. Back in the village, Harako decides to make wine. Everyone gets excited. The girls start stepping on the grapes to extract the juice. Auntie trips and they decide to create a rhythm to help. The elves sing traditional songs from their land while dancing and working. In the end, Harako thinks they made too much wine, but the elves say it might not be enough. The god who wrongly punished Harako is getting scolded for his wrong actions, especially for giving a copy of the sacred spear to the protagonist. The god tries to justify it, saying that he didn't reveal the real use of the spear and that Harako only uses it as a tool. In fact, the spear has the ability to drain someone's energy, but due to Harako's infinite vitality, he is not affected by it. The goddess is furious that the statue that should be her has turned into an old man in Harako's eyes. In another scene, the village is under attack again. This time, a girl is rescued from Zabuton's webs, naked and cornered by wolves. Lulu recognizes the girl and calls her Flora, her sister. Flora is confused about everything, especially about the fact that Harako is Lulu's husband. Kuro pressures her with an unusual look, and Flora ends up apologizing with a Dejiza, embarrassed. Upon learning of Harako's deeds with the wolves and the wyvern, Flora apologizes once again, calling Kuro Hell Wolf. Kuro is proud to be called that, and Lulu is surprised that Harako didn't know that, despite living with them for so long. Harako teaches Flora about the fermentation process during dinner. Flora, like Lulu, is curious and thirsty for knowledge. After a while, Flora leaves to make changes, but soon returns with several Onii maids. Auntie, upon seeing so many communities and clans formed in Harako's village, feels that she is becoming lonely, being the only elf. She decides to leave for a while, but soon returns with subordinates, including angels and lizardmen, as well as a chicken as a gift. Harako realizes that the Onii are not very good cooks, so he tries to teach them, but to no avail. The angels take care of security, since the wyvern attack left everyone apprehensive. The lizardmen take on the heavier tasks and manual labor. Soon, the leader of the elves arrives with all the survivors from the forest, and many elves join the village. Harako asks about the men, since all the elves are women, and discovers that none of them survived the accident. The elves then state that they will put a repopulation plan into practice and begin to look at Harako with malicious eyes. In another scene, everyone gathers in the main hall to decide on a name for the village. After some rejected suggestions, Zabuton points to the door and suggests the Great Tree Village. Harako agrees and names the village, with everyone celebrating with dancing and lots of wine. He is also named mayor of the village. The village, now called the Village of the Great Tree, grows more and more with the arrival of new residents. We are in the transition from winter to summer, and the number of inhabitants continues to increase. Suddenly, the sound of Zabuton's alarm interrupts the celebration, warning of someone's arrival. One of the security angels flies to Harako and warns of the arrival of a messenger from the Demon King. Harako decides to go see what the messenger wants. When they meet, the messenger, named Bezel, requests an audience with the village's leader. Harako introduces himself as the person he is looking for. Bezel is skeptical of his word, but Harako stands firm and claims once again that he is responsible. The messenger then takes a bottle from a space bag and gives it to Harako as a celebration of their first meeting. The messenger then delivers the Demon King's message. The king wants to discuss the status of the village, and Harako thinks he is interested in taxes or even expelling him from there. Harako then suggests a deal. If the king lets him live in peace, he would send 10% of the harvest as payment. Bezel is surprised by the proposal and quickly accepts, without thinking much. Harako is confused by the easy negotiation, but accepts. They go inside to formalize a contract, specifying that they will be 10% of everything that comes from the fields, excluding eggs, milk, honey, and alcohol. If the Demon King wants these products, a separate trade negotiation will be necessary. After the negotiation with the Demon King's messenger, Harako, feeling bad about accepting something so easy, decides to give a farewell gift. T and Lulu then comment that the negotiation negotiation was extremely favorable, since the fees normally charged range from 50% to 60% of the production. For just 10%, they will have the Demon King's annual protection. Lulu also reveals the contents of the bottle that made her happy. It was a panacea, a powerful medicine that cures everything, whether ingested or applied to injuries. In the castle, those present discuss the negotiation with Harako. Everyone is surprised that he accepted the Demon King's submission, especially since he has the military strength to defeat even a wyvern. The messenger then explains that the reason he accepted was the presence of the vampire princess and the angel of annihilation, whom he encountered in the village. He also mentions the army of high elves and the pack of hell wolves he saw, in addition to being guided to Harako by the killer angels. During his stay, he thought it would be the end of his life. Finally, he reveals the gift he received from Harako, a package containing 6 apples. After eating one, he is surprised by its incredible flavor and discovers that the cloth that wrapped them was made from the thread of a large demonic spider, famous for having fought an equal battle against the Demon King. Faced with this, one of the people present at the table, frightened, resigns and decides to leave. The next day, in his village, Harako has an impressive vision. A huge dragon named HAR3M visits them. HAR3M introduces himself as the true ruler of the dragons and offers Harako a gift. He explains that, as neighbors, he has come to pay a greeting. Harako thinks about inviting him in, but realizes that the dragon, with its enormous head, would not be able to enter the village. Then, in the blink of an eye, HAR3M transforms into a human form, making it easier for him to interact with Harako. After a while in the village, the dragon reveals that he loved the place and does not want to leave. Harako then tries to convince him to leave, and HAR3M, after receiving parting gifts, departs. Harako, feeling uncomfortable with keeping visitors waiting outside, decides to build a guest house to accommodate them. The elves suggest building a house large enough to accommodate at least 30 people, considering the difficulty of accessing the village. Construction begins, and Harako decides to supervise how the visitors will be received. Before this, he realizes that the visitors are not being guided properly. They are being captured and taken to the village by the angels. Furthermore, whenever Zabuton's alarm sounds, the lizard men go into battle mode, drawing their weapons to intercept any intruders. Zabuton also gains a new method of warning. Now, there will be a specific bell to ring when visitors arrive. Harako begins to plan how to welcome the village, with the idea of going with Lulu and Tia, but May of Oni quickly refuses, so more people are added to welcome the visitors, which ends up becoming a display of power. Flora is responsible for keeping an eye on the visitors who spend the night, since she can go days without sleeping and still be fine. Shortly after, a group of half-wolves arrives at the village, wanting to establish relations. Lulu takes the lead and asks the leader if that was the entire group of wolves. He confirms, but Lulu questions whether the wolves hiding in the forest would be treated as enemies. The demonic wolves then find and corner all those who were hiding in the trees. Lulu warns that everyone should be careful in the village, since even she herself has to follow the rules when she is there. When placing the visitors in the guest house, Lulu and the others lock the door, explaining that they are not following the rules of good coexistence with the village, since they did not bring gifts. The difference in treatment between the visitors is clear, with those who brought gifts receiving better quality food, while the others receive something much inferior. The Prota, noticing the tension between the parties, asks the group of wolves to drink wine, even though everyone else disagrees with the idea. They prefer to wait and see what the wolves' real intentions are in the village. During the drinking session, the wolves end up revealing some important information. They explain that, in fact, they don't have many inhabitants in their village and that they are looking for negotiations. They heard about the protagonist's village from a member of the Demon King's army, which is why they decided to go there. The next day, the negotiations begin in earnest. The leader of the wolves proposes to exchange minerals for the protagonist's village's production, but he points out that they will have difficulty taking the merchandise there due to the forest terrain. The leader apologizes for not having brought a gift, but promises that next time he will bring something, even if his village is poor. The negotiations continue, and the time to leave for the wolf village arrives. Tia, on behalf of the Prota, goes to accompany the trip because he cannot leave the village alone, especially as the most important man there. HAR3M, the majestic dragon, agrees to take the merchandise there, but in exchange he asks for a barrel of wine, basically offering to be Prota's Uber, as long as he receives a good reward. Arriving at the wolf village, the tension increases. The group is unsure about doing business with Prota until a dragon appears in the sky, causing fear. However, when they realize that Tia is on top of the dragon, their concern diminishes. Everything seems to be going going well, until the leader of the wolf village reveals that he intends to send 20 villagers to Prota's village. To the protagonist's despair, all those sent are young women. Prota then sets a condition: at least 2 of the sent must be men. He accepts all the others, but on the condition that the number of young women is balanced. The group of she-wolves, upon arriving at the village, declares that they are ready to be used in whatever way Prota sees fit, and imposes the condition that he does not abandon them. Prota, trying to remain calm, greets them, saying that the beds are ready and asking them to get used to the local climate. However, his words are misunderstood by the wolves, who interpret his statement completely wrongly. And to make Prota's despair worse, he realizes that the men sent to the village are not adults, but 3 children. 3 boys. The leader of the wolf village had sent 3 children to Prota's village. The elves, outraged, become furious and begin to think about taking the children, but Prota quickly intervenes, asking them to wait at least 10 years before taking any action towards the boys. If you liked the video and want a continuation, write part 2 in the comments so I can bring you the next video.